My name is Engineer Lucy Wanjiku Mutinda. I'm born in Kenya, down on the eastern side of the country, a county known as Machakos County. I am the only daughter amongst 4 brothers, and I grew up in the countryside, and a typical Kenyan countryside, especially in the 80s, did not have electricity or piped water supply. No streets, just a normal village life where we live on farming, herding domestic animals like cows and milking cows. So a typical African life. My parents, they were learned. So my mother was a primary school head teacher, while my father was a doctor working in the city. And the arrangement was that my dad lives in the city, but every Friday he comes back home in the village, and we get to bond. And sadly, my father is late. He left us when I was just 12 years old. He passed on after having a kidney disease, and we've lived with my mother up to now. And yeah, it was great living in the village, and finally moving to the city only after graduating. Throughout my life, my mother has been a great pillar and inspiration. As a head teacher in a village primary school, not only was she just teaching, she also had this entrepreneurial spirit on the side. We had an orchard farm where she grew a lot of oranges. And in addition to her income as a teacher, this income that she made from selling oranges and lemons and some other fruits really boosted her in making sure that we got to school. One interesting thing about my mother that she instilled in us that might have influenced the track that I finally took after studying engineering was that my mother, despite us growing in a very semi-arid area with water shortages, we always had green trees, and our home is covered with a lot of trees. And I remember anytime we washed clothes or washed our utensils, because we didn't wash our utensils in a running sink or something. It's you use containers and you wash the utensils in the outdoor. But that water, she would insist that we don't just throw it, but we would use it to keep our trees growing. So amazing is that around our home, it's all green. We grew up around trees, yet it's a dry area. We didn't have piped water. And I think this thing of environmental conservation really got into my head. And by the time I grew up and studied engineering, I always knew I want to do engineering, but an engineering that will help me to provide technology or some knowledge that helps in preserving a good environment. I think my story has been a story of luck, preparedness, and knowing. So what happened is, I think growing up with boys, again, I was the only girl. And in the village, as I grew up with the boys, the very other interesting factor is the recycling factor in a village life. In the 80s, our cooking oil, our juices, they were all packaged in tin, and the juices were packaged in glass. And then we had some things packaged in containers. So in a typical village, when you exhaust these things, you do not throw away those containers. You reuse them either to go to the river to fetch water, or you will reuse it as a container to store your sugar. So our natural village life already entailed a lot of recycling. So there's the combination of the way of life and growing up with boys who would make toys out of, again, the old tins. If they wanted to make a ball to play, we would just take old material using some sisal fiber, some paper, and we'd make balls. So growing up with boys, we were always making things. And I think I attribute my engineering hands-on to just the way I grew up. So by the time I was in high school, I already was interested in physics, chemistry, and biology. And I happened to be also an all-rounder, very good in languages. So I ended up just choosing engineering naturally. So when I went to the university, I studied engineering, I completed engineering, and then my initial interest, because in Kenya, the industries are not as established as in Europe. Kenya and a lot of African countries is a lot of importation of already made parts. So I ended up in the automotive industry, General Motors, where we import the parts from Japan, some from the US, and all we have is an assembly line to put the parts together. So my first job after university, I was more in automotive engineering. But then back in my head, again, the 12 years I had with my dad, he had had a scholarship in the US and in Germany. And as we grew up, he would keep showing us the photos and how he had studied in California University. One time he was in south of Germany. And I remember I would always tell him, when I grow up, I have to go to all these places that you have been. So one time, while I was working as an automotive engineer, I came across the scholarship advert for a program called Africa Comped by GIZ in 2008. And I applied for that scholarship. And so I went for the interviews and I got the full scholarship. And again, I say luck as a counterfactual. Always thinking about something, an opportunity presents itself, you apply and you get it. So I found myself in Germany, and I was based in Continental AG in Hanover, although we spent the first few months in Cologne and Saarbrücken just studying German, because for this program you have to study German the first 3 months so that when you finally get posted to your company, you're able to communicate in German and just to make your life easy. And actually for me, I was among the best students in that class because I was able to speak German in just less than 2 months. And then I landed again in Hanover where they speak Hochdeutsch. So I really had to quickly learn and my colleagues were helping me. And so ich spreche sehr gut Deutsch eigentlich. And it's already like 14 years, but I'm still able to speak German. So while in Germany, I remember one time I was chatting with a friend and they told me about a trade fair that happens in Munich that exhibits wastewater technologies, because I told him I'm an engineer, I'm here at Continental doing automotive, but I have an interest in engineering for the environment. And so he mentioned about this IFAT trade fair that happens every 2 years in Munich. And so I was in Hanover, but because I was interested, I started reading about it. Remember, I'm working in automotive company, but I have this interest in the back of my mind. And the one thing that still made me get this interest so much was that I went around Germany. I just loved the parks, the green areas. And I was just curious, how would we make it back at home to have such green spaces, yet we have water challenges, we have sewer challenges. So I was just keen to understand how Germany handles their wastewater. You call them Kläranlage there in Germany. So just by discussing with a friend and he gives me information, I got to get this information. I got interested. And one time I made my way to just go to the IFAT. And when I got there, I was just impressed by the amount of technologies that I saw from very big companies like the biggest company like Siemens to other small companies that provide water solutions. And so I just went around and somehow I came across this company that is not so big, but focuses on small Kläranlage. And then I told them, I'm not yet a business person, but when I return back home, I would want to set up such a business. I do not have the capital now, but I'm just making myself aware and understanding what exists. And when I go back home, one day, I will get in touch with you. And the joke that the owner of that company says, when he saw me that day, he just saw a young person, just like a student, looking interested, but no money, but he still believed in me. So he said, fine, take our contacts and you will get in touch with us when, I think in his head, he meant when you are mature enough and have made more money, but that's not what he told me. So I finished my scholarship in Continental AG. I came back to Kenya in 2009. And when I came back to Kenya in 2009, again, another coincidence happened. I came back not to come back to automotive, but now my mind had shifted. I want engineering for the environment. So a friend of mine from university that was ahead of me, already working in the US, and he was working with the US Army camps, happened to chat with me online and said, oh, I'm also going back home. I'm relocating back home after so many years of working in the US. But having been working with the US Army, I have come across a technology that they use to manage their waste in the camps. And I want to go back home and implement this technology, an American technology. Then I said, wow, I've also been looking around in Germany, and I think this is the way to go, and it's interesting for me. So he proposed, would you be interested to team with me? We go and set this up. And I said, fine, when I come back from Germany, then we can work together. And so coming back in 2009, we set up together. In my head, I knew I would want a German technology, but because he had already found his American technology, and I think he had finances better than me because he was more senior, so I was okay to work with this technology. So the first project we landed was a very big project, a very big hotel in Kenya. If you Google, it's called Enashipai. So it's a technology that would serve up to 1,000 people population because it's a big hotel. So for me, it presented a very good opportunity to learn from scratch how to do wastewater. And we did the project, and the engineers from America only came at the end during commissioning. And I remember one engineer saying, I am just amazed that a young girl can work with manuals and get this thing fixed, and we're just coming to commission. So that again made me feel so confident, and I just said, I'm gonna continue working, but I know at the end of it all, when I have my own money, I'm gonna set this up, and I will reach out to my German contact that I had already made at the IFAT. So it took me I worked with this guy for like 2 years. And then I was poached by another company that was trying to introduce wastewater from South Africa, because wastewater became a technology in Kenya around that time, 2007, 2009. That's when it was being introduced in Kenya. There was no recycling of sewage existing. So I was like a hot cake, because the rumor was that this girl engineer has worked with this hotel. So they just looked for me, they poached me. I worked with them for about 3 years, and not so long again, another company picked me up. They gave me, I think it was a 50% salary increment to also go and start a wastewater department for them, because this company had been in the market for 7 years dealing with portable toilets. So while he was doing his portable toilet business, and because he went to the US a lot to attend trade fairs and get more modern toilets, he would come across wastewater suppliers who would tell him, how about you also consider wastewater? But because he was just an entrepreneur without engineering knowledge, he always ignored the wastewater proposals. But when he heard about me, again, he looked for me and came, negotiated with me, gave a 50% salary increment, and told me, I would like to hire you so that you can establish for me this new department in addition to my portable toilets, because I already have interested American suppliers, but I have not been able to do it because I do not have the knowledge. So I moved after 3 years to this new company. So that took me about, I moved there in 2011, and I worked for them until 2014, around 2013. Now, while I was working for this person that had brought in an American technology, I just mentioned to him, I happen to have this German contact that I have had for some time. Would you mind trying their technology? So I know we've been working with this American one, but there's some benefits that I see that are higher and better. Something like the American technology is so bulky. The blowers that we use for the aeration are very loud, but the German machine is compact, small, and takes very little space. So I convinced him, and he accepted that I contact my contact and bring in around 2 or 1 for pilot testing. So we did that, and it was running well, but somewhere around 2013, 2014, I started to feel, I think now I have enough experience, and there's this confidence in me that now I just need to do this on my own, because people have been looking for me. I set up, it's successful, another person is looking for me. Now I have a good network of customers. My fellow senior engineers who I have worked with in the projects that I have done have confidence in me. So I think it's high time I just do this thing as myself. So when I made that decision, I contacted the old man in Germany, the owner of the company, that just thought I was a student around, because that was a difference of 5 years from when I had visited them in IFAT. I wrote to him and told him, I feel confident enough to set up my own company. I even told him I had thought of the name. I was going to call it EcoCycle Limited. And I want to be the local dealer of, they call themselves Reinhardt GmbH from the north in Germany. And so when I called him, he was very excited and said, actually, from the pilots that we have done, I have been convinced that now you are ready and you've seen you can do this. So we can give you the dealership letter anytime you want. You want it today, you want it tomorrow. And so he gave me the letter. I sent him my logo. He said, I love it. You don't need to change it. I had just done a logo using PowerPoint. Then he said, it's perfect now. You just need a professional graphics person to polish it and start your company. So I established my company in 2014. That was about 4 or 5 years after meeting these people in IFAT, having been in Germany and exposed to see this technology. And when I sent my exit announcement and wrote my last email telling my customers bye-bye, the consultants, all I got with the response to my personal email was, yes, we believed you can do this. You're competent enough. Go for it. Reach out to me for your first project. And that's how I kicked off. Again, for me, it's been a story of luck. I even brought it in one of the assignments for Chengwei when he asked us to demonstrate luck as a counterfactual in our lives. So my exposure in Germany was so good, such that by the time I was leaving, I had already set my mind that I must do a master's in Germany one time, because that scholarship that I had lasted for 1.5 years. But after completing, it's like every year, because we had to go back for a refresher course. And then after the refresher course, I had joined an alumni portal for DRRD, where they offer a lot of summer short-term trainings. So every year after I resumed to Kenya, every year I had a summer course to attend in Germany, sponsored by DRRD. And it was always in the track of environment, wastewater management. So I strengthened my link with Germany. And I was just so curious that, and content with the kind of information and the training, the way it's done, that I was certain I want to do a master's in Germany. But here was the problem. I was not ready to relocate to Germany for 2 years. Yet I started my family in around 2010, and in 2014 I started my company. So it would be difficult to leave, because most German masters are 2 years. So for a while, I have been trying to ask which German university offers an online course, because my master's has to be in Germany, but I want to do it online while still doing my things back at home. And so during COVID, a coincidence happened. I was, because I ran my business, which is a representative of a German company. My company and myself are a member of the German Business Association in Kenya. So through the German Business Association of Kenya, companies that have anything, product or processes to do with German, origin of German, they are members. And we do networking. We have delegation trips of companies coming to seek business. If Kenyan companies want to go to Germany to seek partnerships, it's the GBA that coordinates. So one day I'm just sitting on my email inbox and I see an email from one of the German business contacts, and they were writing my name, and she told me, "Hi Lucy, Allianz Insurance, one of our members, has approached GBA asking that we recommend a lady that is of technical background, doing business, is an entrepreneur, and is impacting the environment. And the only name we could think was Lucy. And so I just told her, this is it. This is what I have been looking for, an online course. And it's an even better package because I don't have to pay for myself. Alliance was willing to sponsor a lady, young engineer, doing business and impacting the environment. And so I put in my application and Alliance said, yes, we will sponsor her. And so here I am at ESMT. And when I looked at the course network, it's exactly the course work. It's exactly what I need to learn to make my business better, especially after COVID. We need to recover. There's a lot of concepts that we need, especially our first module was about global virtual teams. And we've been working remotely. And so things like being told when you do your meetings, for you to promote team affinity and kill the affinity distance, it's important that their videos are on as you greet each other. Simple things that we were not doing, I started implementing directly in my business. So it's been a very practical course. It just came in the right package because in COVID, as an entrepreneur, I am so broke. I wouldn't afford the money to sponsor my own studies. And here comes Allianz. They approached the German Business Association. I happen to be a member, and I happen to be the best definition that they were looking for. And so here I am. I just have a lot of things to link. And from the day one when we got into class, the one thing, I do a lot of mentoring actually. And most of the things that I have studied through all these summer courses, what I studied while I was in the Africa Compt program, I actually give it back to the people around me because when I'm running my company, most of the concepts that I am using is concepts that I picked during my GIZ training. Because when I came to Germany, I saw the value of proper documentation, proper email communication. We live it in my company. So anytime I hire somebody new, I'm sort of transferring all the knowledge that I get. So even the ESMT knowledge that I'm getting is very valuable real time because I translate it to what we need in our business and use it. And so the one greatest thing that when we got into our first class is the nature of the diverse classmates and the different areas that they come from. We have somebody from India, we have somebody from Japan, we have somebody in Canada, we have somebody in Germany, we have somebody in Australia, in Switzerland. So for me, a network is so rich and valuable, even more than money, because when I mentor people that are younger than me and we talk about starting a business, nowadays I tell them a network is more important than even having the cash. Because like if you had my story, how I started EcoCycle, I didn't quite have capital, but the references and the networks that I had made gave me the first orders and gave me the first down payments for me to be able to order my equipment and start my business. So this valuable network that ESMT has brought in is so invaluable because even as we do our group works, let's say I'm facing a challenge in the office, you just drop it in the group and somebody has such a quick, easy solution that is fixable. And so the network alone in its own is such a valuable thing that we're getting from ESMT. Of course, Kenya is a rich destination for tourism. So the people that I have been come close with, I have been telling them about the destinations, how much it costs. So it may not be a business gain, but I'm adding social network value to my classmates because somehow when I show my backgrounds or my photos during classes, everybody thinks Kenya is amazing because I live in a place where we are so next to the park. So one day I was having a group discussion and I just showed my classmates the zebras crossing in the background and people just went wild and they're like, this is the place to be. So, you know, this network and bringing in different valuable things, be it socially, be it business ideas or how to solve a challenge that you have existing has been amazing. The other most interesting thing that is very practical, I've been trying to diversify my products because during COVID, I noted our wastewater equipment, it's a heavy capital investment. So with COVID, a lot of people are shy from investing and they're holding on. So our projects have gone down. So I've been thinking to bring in an additional product that is related to waste management, but a fast moving commodity that we sell quickly and it keeps our cash flow flowing. So I identified a manufacturer from India who I tried to write an email on their website. I tried to call, they were not responding. So I decided to ask one of my group mates, Chandra, because he's in India, if he can help me to get in touch with the company. And he helped me and they managed to write to me because online they were not responding. And right now we are in a conversation. In fact, we were supposed to have a Zoom, just like you. I've been shifting my Zoom meeting with them. We are supposed to meet on Tuesday and now discuss which product I can pick and add to my portfolio. So those are tangible, actual results that we are getting. One time, because of this video assignments that we have, we were discussing, where do I get a ring light? How much is a ring light in your country? So we could see the ring lights in Kenya were so expensive. And at one point, I remember Asif, based in Dubai, was like, in Dubai, it is so cheap. So if you really have to buy it from Dubai, just tell me, I'll send it over to you. So we are really, the network is just, I don't know what to say. It's invaluable. And the assignments that we do, we discuss actual case studies. And when we discuss case studies, you get actual solutions from your team members. And especially mine being a small company, you see the rest of my classmates, perhaps they are bosses in Volkswagen or Allianz, a very big company where they're not able to just change something immediately. So I must say, I think I have been the biggest beneficiary because mine is a very small company and I make the decisions I bring into my team. And so it's been very fast to just implement whatever I pick and it's valuable. So as a small company, it's advantageous with all the ideas. If you looked at my campaign poster, it talks about data-driven policies. I just picked that from our data-driven decisions class because it's been so impactful, Catalina teaching us about how to use data to make decisions. So when I tell my engineering fraternity, the members of our association, that I want to engage in driving policies that improve the welfare or promote job creation for the young engineers, because we have a lot of almost 80% unemployment. But nobody has ever sat down to analyze how many graduates do we get every year, how many opportunities are available in the market, to match it so that we can push the government to make a policy that matches supply and demand. So if you saw my campaign poster, it says data-driven policies. And this I did not have before. I got it just because of being in the data-driven decisions class. I have seen the importance of using data, even the most simply available data, to come up with a decision and, make a long-term policy. So I actually wrote to Catalina and Urs and Chengwei and sent them my poster and told them, look, and there's integrity again, because we've been studying a lot about ethics and responsibility with Professor Urs. Personally, I run my business on integrity, but he has brought in the actual tangible concepts where you can pick chances of having unethical business practices. He makes you see it so that you can avoid it. And I feel I'm also ready to bring that to my fraternity and be an advocate for ethics and integrity within engineering amongst ourselves as members and amongst the stakeholders. Because in engineering, when we do infrastructure projects in Kenya, it's known for a lot of corrupt deals. So I want to bring now this tangible knowledge of handling ethics as I advocate for integrity and ethics in engineering. Okay, so as I said, my company is only 8 years old. So when I look at my future, because I call this company my third born, my future is very much interlinked with my company, because this environmental preservation from sewer pollution that I do is not just as a concept, it's something that I'm really passionate about. So a dream that I hold in the back of my mind, and maybe inspired by the laureate Wangari Maathai, I want by the time I'm about 60 years or 70 that there will be something like an eco center that is either a side by CSR to EcoCycle, where you sort of advocate and train people, young people, about using their knowledge to preserve the environment. And just because I also mentor a lot on promoting STEM. So I really see the value of having technical and STEM minds think about the environment, because the environment is one of the assets that is common to all of us, that we say we've borrowed it from the future, and we inherited it from those that went before us. So I want to have something that can outlive me, like an institution that is sort of an NGO that advocates for training people in STEM with an inclination to really preserving the environment. And EcoCycle blends with that, because it would be the company that shows them practically how to do it, but then the NGO is the advocacy for how STEM and environment really blend together. And EcoCycle will be an idea. And of course, we would like this company to live to our daughters and even get more investors, and it grows bigger and becomes a big multinational. Yeah.